the next games, which is going to have thousands of people there probably. So thank you, staff, for all your work.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Any other reports this morning? Okay, takes us to item 7. Mr. Erickson, Executive Director report.
Thank you, Chair LaVere, Commissioners. Happy Friday. I was expecting it would be kind of a sunnier day when I saw the temperature was going to be 72, but I was using my windshield wipers on the way here, so hopefully that will augur in some sunnier days soon. Just a quick reminder to everyone who has microphones here, there's a button on the microphone, and if you press it, look for the green dot, then the microphone's on. Some of them may not be on, but just a little housekeeping. I first just want to thank Caltrans for their partnership again. I think the 150 highway landslide, I think reflects our partnership with them. We're very grateful too. This pedestrian path has recently opened that complements the emergency shuttle that VCTC has been running since March 20th. And we're hopeful that one lane will be open soon. but it is just a reminder of the challenges we face with weather-related projects. And to that end, you have my Executive Director's report in front of you. I think it reflects many of the projects that VCTC is working on to improve the lives of Ventura County residents, from the freeways to buses to just walking, riding a bike, any mobility you're doing. I'm going to highlight just a few of them. One of them is we just recently submitted a grant to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research for a climate adaptation planning grant, which Amanda Fagan really worked very closely on submitting. And this is timely for a lot of reasons, but our infrastructure is getting older. It's being very affected by weather events, and we need to be mindful of that as we move forward. Second, I don't want to steal any thunder from Vice Chair Judge's SCAG report later, but very grateful to him serving as Vice Chair on that SCAG committee. We recently learned that our REAP grants, where the funding was restored to all of them, which is a nice thing to hear right now in the midst of the budget woes. And also just want to recognize Commissioner Crosswhite's role on SCAG. Also, we have commissioners that are actively involved in SCAG, Bob Engler too, and I hope I'm not missing. Oh, and of course, B&A Lopez next to me. So we're well represented on SCAG, and they are, doing very important partnership work too. Today's budget adoption day, very exciting day. And I have to note that in the beginning of your report, VCTC for the 15th year just received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for our annual comprehensive financial report, which used to be called the CAFR, which I still say because it's hard to break that habit. But I want to recognize Sally DeGeorge, Tao, Daisy, Trina, the whole finance team, supported by the rest of my staff. But I've always said, if you don't have a solid budget and reserves in some areas of your organization, it makes doing a lot of what we do well impossible. And I'll give you one example of that. If we didn't have some reserves in certain accounts from conservative but good fiscal management, we wouldn't have been able to run this emergency shuttle on the State Route 150, which hopefully we're going to get reimbursed for too, or be able to work to fix other issues like the bridge washing away on the Sespe River on our train track. And then finally, I want to note just how these meetings happen each month. I want to recognize my executive assistant, clerk of the commission, Roxana Ibarra, and Steve Effner, our manager of IT. They're here early before these meetings with me, usually listening to me, running around being a stress case. But and I want to thank the city of Camarillo too for graciously allowing us to meet in this room as their facility is done. I think it's been a good place to meet. We're probably going to be here for several more months until the council chambers are done at Camarillo City Hall. But again, thank you both, Roxana and Steve, for your work in making these meetings happen. So I'm open to any questions from the report. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Erickson. Any questions on the report? Okay. That takes us to item 8. Are there any additions or revisions that my colleagues would like to the agenda that was posted?
There are none.
Okay, then we can move forward as posted, and that takes us to our consent calendar, which is items 9A through 9N. Any of my colleagues wish to ask any questions or pull an item, or if not, we can take action.
Chavez moves.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Broggie, Commissioner Chavez,
Aye.
Commissioner Crosswhite,
Yes.
Commissioner Engler,
Yes.
Commissioner Francina,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner White.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, and I apologize. Vice Chair Judge, Chair Levere.
Yes.
My apologies.
It's okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, item 10, the first item on our discussion calendar, the review of our fiscal year 2024-2025 proposed budget. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners. Before you is the proposed fiscal year 2024-2025 budget, which is item 10 to your agenda. The Ventura County Transportation Commission fiscal year 2024-2025 proposed budget was reviewed by the Finance Committee on May 30th. After review and discussion, the Finance Committee recommended forwarding the budget to the full commission for review. As you can see, this year's budget cover is promoting our VCTC intercity services. But before we get into the numbers of the budget, Martin is going to update us on the state and federal state of the transportation.
Thank you, Sally. And I first just want to acknowledge Chair Levere, Vice Chair Judge, and immediate past Chair McDonald for serving on the Admin Finance Committee. We've had 2 meetings where they reviewed the budget in detail. I appreciate the feedback we received from them on this process. And in terms of the federal funding and the state funding, I wish I had more and better news to report, but it's been an interesting year. Grateful that our budget, again, is steady, at least relatively. For the federal funding, I actually just returned from a trip to Washington, D.C. with the Mobility 21 board, which I serve on, and a big purpose of that trip was to reinforce the message that the IIJA, which was a bipartisan federal funding effort, is important to keep going. It still, even though it's a 5-year transportation bill, it still needs to be funded every year going forward. So we really wanted to remind Congress that this funding is important. It's already going toward more transit operations and, of course, many infrastructure projects too. Perhaps somewhat quixotically, I'm hopeful that we can get to a point where transportation and transit will be a nonpartisan issue like it was not too long ago, because at the end of the day, mobility affects all of us, regardless of a political party. And I'm grateful for the efforts of this commission working so well together to allow us to go after the funding we're eligible for. I think we're doing very well in that. But as we go to next slide, the state budget picture, we also know the reality that a few years ago there was nearly $100 billion surplus that has now turned into, depending on which estimate you listen to, up to a $60–70 billion deficit. And I kind of liken it to the old game you might remember from elementary school, red light, green light, where you would go and then red light and then green light, and stop, go. In the last few months, I just want to really recognize my team for working to keep our programs funded, from College Ride to Youth Ride Free to other programs and the REAP most recently. We appreciate that at least the bulk of the transportation funding seems to be intact. We're concerned about future years of SB 125. But interestingly, as I noted before, and as you'll hear from our budget, sales tax revenues statewide are actually slightly higher. So this somewhat dichotomous situation where there's a massive state budget deficit, but at least the overall economy measured by sales tax is fairly strong. Thankfully, if it wasn't, we'd be having a different discussion today, as nearly more than 2/3 of VCTC's revenue are in some ways related to sales tax or the health of the state economy. But we are thankful for our partnerships with the California Transit Association, with working with the county, working with all the cities. I feel like the messaging we've delivered back to Sacramento, the importance of this funding is critical. And the budget before you today is balanced and forward-looking despite these challenges we're in. And open any questions on the funding picture before I turn it back to Sally.
Any questions on the federal and state funding? I just have one question. We've talked about this at our board. We're all kind of budgeted in the dark now since we don't have the state budget. And that's not going to be released until the 15th. Are we looking at something like depending on what the state does on the 15th, coming back mid-year and making whatever adjustments are necessary?
That is a possibility. We're hoping that won't be the case. I mean, we're hoping the estimates that we have, Sally, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll move forward. But if there is some type of large shift again, we will obviously be reporting back to you soon.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Mr. Crosswhite.
Yeah, so in terms of along those lines, in terms of the REAP and the active transportation funding, what assumptions have we made in the budget on where those are going to end up falling? Because they are, like you had mentioned earlier, they're not restored in terms of REAP, but it's in the joint budget that the Assembly and the Senate put out. So it's sort of a question of what are their negotiations with the governor's office going to continue to look like. But they're at least mostly back in there for now. I think there's still 50 million of the REAP, and I don't know if they might have restored all of the active transportation in their budget, but what assumptions do we make, and then will we just adjust accordingly, or how is that going to work?
Short answer, yes. We will adjust accordingly, and what you just conveyed really kind of captures the, lack of a better word, the tumult we've been in terms of trying to plan and have a budget and go forward, but not being certain of what actually is going to be funded or what's not going to be funded. So I'd say we're, in terms of some of the REAP projects, we received a letter to basically stop the projects. Now it takes time to restore that and have it moving, but we will. I'd say there's a strong possibility we'll have at least an update of where we are after the state budget is approved. But I think the budget you have before you today is working with the best information we have and the projects we can continue to keep moving. Some are going to be a little longer to restart, but our intent is that we can still carry them out with a little more delay probably than would have been if they'd never been unfunded.
So to clarify though, did we assume that the projects are in the budget and then we'll adjust them out if the state budget changes, or do we assume that they're not happening and we'll put them back in? I guess that's the piece that I was trying to clarify.
Yes, I believe that's my understanding is.
Happy to take that one. So with the draft budget, we did include a few of the REAP programs. Not all of them. There were some we knew that probably just wasn't going to make a cut, but we were wishful thinking at the draft budget. We have removed those budgets, the REAP funding from this budget. So any projects we were hoping to get, we went ahead and removed because at the time that we were finalizing budgets, it was still so uncertain and that we wanted to take them out. However, we are always happy to amend them back into the budget as soon as we get the green light. So I don't want to say if, but hopefully when that happens, as we have been notified, it looks like some of our projects will receive partial funding. We will be bringing those items back to the commission to amend back into the budget as they become available. So you'll be aware of which projects and how much funding and how much we're going to have to search in other areas, because they were all good projects and we'd like to see them move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Crosswhite. Okay, then we'll move on. Mr. George?
Okay. So as we discuss the VCTC budget, it's important to understand where VCTC's revenues come from and how our revenues differ from the cities and the county. So as mentioned with the draft budget that we reviewed just in April, VCTC has no dedicated transportation funding and is largely consists of federal and state funding. Our revenues are often restricted use funds and project specific. And unlike the cities, VCTC has no ongoing general fund revenues that can be used to backfill shortfalls. They have to be transit specific or even, again, project specific. Our budget consists of about 23% federal funding, 71% state funding, and about 6% of local and other funding. The federal funds are basically flat from last year, but they are $4.2 million higher than we brought to you with the draft budget due to the inclusion of the FTA one-time federal funding that goes to local agencies. Our state funding increased by about $4.4 million over last fiscal year, but actually decreased about $700,000 from our draft budget. That was largely due to the removal of the REAP projects, but those were then offset by additional LC top funds. So the full loss of the REAP funding isn't quite as clear. But again, we're hoping to add those back in as we get notification that the funding has been secured.
And Sally, sorry, if I could just jump in really quick, because I think this is such a great slide to illustrate the importance of sales tax for VCTC's budget. So the middle column there, the state, 71%. $76 million or so. The LTF, the 48 million of that, and the state transit assistance, the LTF is based on sales tax, statewide sales tax. The STA is based on the tax on diesel gasoline sales. So, you take those two numbers together, you're over $60 million of our budget. The point about if sales taxes had plummeted, we, again, would be having a different discussion today. Thanks, sorry, Sally.
Sure. So as Martin pointed out, our largest funding source are our state funding. We are not reliant like the state is on personal income tax, so we have a different economic cycle than many of the state agencies. And finally, with our local and other funds, it increased about $1.5 million year over year and about $100,000 from the draft budget. And this is largely due to increases in local match for the services we provide, as well as leases along some of our railroad lines. VCTC employs a small but capable staff that provides support to our region. The final personnel costs are similar to the draft and about $59,000 higher than the draft budget. The personnel costs are approximately $4.6 million, or only 3.5% of our budget, and include 24 full-time positions. The increase of about $360,000 is due to several factors. One is there's an increase of about $54,000 for salary range adjustments due to the salary schedule that the commission approved back in February that was going to be effective July 1st, as well as one position reclassification in the programming department, moving the analyst to a manager position. The personnel costs increase about $135,000 for a merit pool for employees not at the top of their range, and $104,000 for a 4% COLA for all employees. The associated taxes with that is about $31,000. Our associated insurances are an increase of about $57,000. But I'm happy to report that we actually have a decrease in our OPEB expenses of about $21,000 due to the positive investment gains we have on our CERT trust the commission set up back in 2009. And in fact, for the very first year, VCTC will be using those investment gains to help pay for our expenses. As of the last evaluations, our pension funding is at about 92%, and our OPEB funding is about 99.8%. Our CERT trust, which is our OPEB, or Other Post-Employment Benefit Trust, has an internal rate of return of about 6.71% since 2009, and that includes 2 downturns. And what that means in dollars for VCTC is a savings of about $936,000 that we will be able to use instead of having to use other funds. In fiscal year 24-25, our balanced budget is just over $131.6 million. It's divided into 6 programs to support VCTC's mission to create a more connected, resilient, equitable, and user-friendly transportation system in Ventura County. The proposed budget is approximately $3.6 million higher than the draft budget, largely due to the addition of the FTA funds that we pass through to local agencies. Many of the year-over-year changes from 23-24 were presented with the draft budget in April and are also included in the agenda item in the budget itself. So in the next few slides, I'm going to focus on the major changes from the draft budget. The Transit and Transportation Program is $39.8 million, or 30% of the budget, and contains 5 budget tasks that help the Commission to prioritize transportation projects, transit technology, and state and federal funding to better serve our community. There were significant changes from the draft budget within 2 of our tasks. The Transit Grant Administration budget increased about $4.8 million in new FTA funding to local agencies, offset by the completion of local pass-through funding to those local agencies that actually resulted in a net decrease of $579,000 within that line item. That's a good thing. That's showing progress with local projects being completed. The VCTC intercity services increased by about $94,000 from the draft budget due to the cost rate increase with a vendor that occurred in May. This budget will be about $6 million higher than last year, but is largely due to the inclusion of the purchase of 5 new budget buses, as well as the rehabilitation of 5 additional buses. Within our highway programs at $6.8 million, or 5% of the budget, it contains 2 budget tasks that are for capital and planning projects that VCTC implements, co-partners, and oversees for the county. There's only one significant change within this program, and that's within the motorist aid service budget. There's an additional reduction of about $237,000 as we adjusted the carryover balance for the incident responder grant into this new year's budget. The budget will be about $1.2 million lower than the current fiscal year, and again, that's largely due to the incident responder grant being successfully implemented and the funds paid out to our local agencies. Within our rail program at $31.8 million, or 24% of the budget, it contains 3 budget tasks which encompass the rail programs within Ventura County. Our rail programs provide safe and reliable transit alternatives for services going beyond what our buses serve. It also provides active transportation opportunities through a recreational multi-use path as part of the Santa Paula branch line. The significant changes from the draft budget are found within the Metrolink budget, a decrease of about another $937,000 for the partial completion of capital projects, resulting in a $3.5 million decrease from the prior year. Again, this is good. That shows that Metrolink is completing projects that are on the books. What I do want to point out is this budget does contain about $9.7 million in capital rehab projects, as well as $1.5 million for the ADA compliance needs that are with the Camarillo station. Within our Santa Paula branch line, there's an addition of about $607,000 for repairs on the Sespe Bridge due to the storm damage, with an overall increase from the current year of about $3.82 million. The Commuter Assistance Program at $866,000, or $400, is about 1% of our budget and contains 2 budget tasks that encourage residents to use alternative modes of transportation. There weren't any significant changes within these 2 budgets, so I'm going to move on. Within the planning and programming at $50.7 million, or 39% of our budget and our largest program, it contains 5 budget tasks that focus on comprehensive countywide transportation planning and oversight to improve transit and transportation within our county. The significant changes from the draft budget are found within the regional transit planning. There's a decrease of about $1.2 million due to the removal of the bus stop improvements project, as well as the paratransit integration study, as mentioned earlier, with the lack of our REAP funding. We hope to restore some of this, but we will bring this item back to you at that time. Also, and again, the REAP funding was cut due to the state budget revisions due to the state budget deficit. It actually results in about a net decrease of about $520,000 from the current year. Our TDA administration budget increased by about $361,000 for additional pass-through funding to local agencies. So this is a case where increasing the budget is a good thing. We're giving more money to the locals because VCTC needed less administrative funds, it did result in a $1.4 million reduction from the prior year, but that is strictly due to a smaller carry balances in this current year. The receipts are actually up, as Martin pointed out. So right now, all is well as long as the economy holds. So additional funding will be going to the local agencies. The transportation programming and reporting increased by about $60,000 for additional staff costs associated with the position reclassification, as well as additional budgeted staff time, resulting in an increase of about $42,000 from the current year. Within our last program, the general government program, at $1.7 million or 1% of the budget, it consists of 3 budget tasks that administer and support the day-to-day activities of our commission. The significant change from the draft budget was only found within the state and federal government relations, as we increased our consultant services by about $38,000. So at the end of the fiscal year of 24-25, the $131.6 million balanced budget leaves an estimated $23 million fund balance after being adjusted for reserves. Our funds available for general use are only found within the general fund, and the fund balance is estimated to be about $5,000 out of a $50,000 reserve. Within the restricted fund balances, the local transportation fund balance will be about $473,000 with a $4 million reserve, and the state transit assistant fund balance will be about $19.4 million with 0 reserve. Again, some of the possible uses of the state transit assistant funds would be for cash flow when our federal grants or other capital projects we don't receive the money as timely as we would like, so we can use it for cash flow. We can use these funds for capital projects for Metrolink, VCTC, intercity bus purchases, as well as implementing the recommendations out of the TIE study. We also can use this money for the Santa Paula branch line storm damage, as we've mentioned before. Within the Service Authority for Freeway Emergencies fund balance, it'll be about $1.5 million with an additional reserve of $1.5 million. These funds are often used for the Freeway Service Patrol program, which has been very successful and well embraced by our county. Additional incident responder grants that we do about every 2 years, as well as possible future replacements of the call box system when deemed necessary. Within the State of Good Repair fund balance, about $1.6 million with no reserve, and the Santa Paula branch line is expected to have about a $25,000 fund balance with no reserve. So again, the Finance Committee met on May 30th to review and discuss our proposed budget, and they recommended forwarding this budget as presented to the full commission for review and approval. All staff is here and available and happy to answer any questions that you may have. And staff's recommendations are to conduct a public hearing to receive testimony on the fiscal year 24-25 budget, adopt the fiscal year 24-25 salary schedule as attachment 1 to this item, as well as Appendix C in the 24-25 budget, effective July 1st, 2024, and adopt by resolution the 2024-7 fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget. And with that, I want to thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. I will open up the public hearing. Start with, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments at this time.
Okay, then let's take questions or comments from the commission. Commissioner Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. George, and to your team for the work on this. I don't want to go dark with this, but
It's okay.
in the event that the state comes back and they say, hey, our projections were a lot lower, so now all these transit agencies, government agencies have to look at more cuts from their budget. Are there particular areas that we're looking at maybe in the possibility of cutting if we need to?
I think I'll Martin, you want to take it? Okay.
Would you want to start?
Sure, I'll start and then Martin will take in there. So with the state budget, as Martin mentioned, our local transportation fund and our state transit assistant, you know what, let me go back as I talk about this. Sorry, it's hard with the screen behind me. There. give you. So with the what we call LTF and STA, those are based on sales tax. So in theory, as long as everybody keeps spending and driving, then those should hold and should be fine. So please encourage your family, friends, and neighbors to keep spending with our economy and spend in Ventura County. The state of good repair, I think those funds are fairly secure with the SB, I'm going to mess up the legislative, but with the legislative, they're pretty secure. Right now, I don't see any problems with the PPM and the Access for All. Hopefully, the LC top should be pretty secure. The REAP funding, we only have $20,000 in there right now, and that's actually carryover from this year, so that will likely change. I think the REAP funding is potentially some of the funding that could be not turned back into the budget. The Freeway Service Patrol should be pretty much okay. I'm not as familiar with the Clean California and Solutions for Congested Corridors, so I don't know if Martin has more with that. And then I think probably our because the REAP funds are not in the budget, our potential largest area is the SB 125, and 8.2 million is not something to shirk. They could come back and cut more of that. Nothing's sure until they sign the budget. We've still been told it's ready to go as soon as the budget's passed. It's got a green light. They're just waiting for the go. They could delay some of the money. We could have to shift some of the money. Claire's not here, but I know she's already looked at what projects could wait, what projects could we fund with other money. So we are in the background looking for alternatives to keep as much whole as we can. But I think the one that's probably at biggest risk is SB 125, but they have told us, at least to this point, that at least the first year looks pretty good. We tried to build a very conservative budget, and like I said, did take some out. Martin, do you want to add?
I think you gave a good overview, Sally. And Commissioner Chavez, I was going to ask if you've been reading my mind recently, because we've been having I've been having these thoughts, and we spent a lot of time with Claire Grassi, the transit director, and Matt and Aubrey of her team, kind of strategizing what if there is a secondary cut. What if? So, just to add a little bit more to what Sally said. Thankfully, we do still have a healthy STA fund balance. Now, STA is transit only, so that's not going to help on some areas that the funding isn't eligible for. But in the event that there were significant cuts to SB 125, again, it wouldn't cover all of it because it's not enough, but that $20 million fund balance we have there could help, in a worst case scenario, as it has done in the past, get us through for a while. But we'll just have to wait and see. We're hopeful now that the numbers we have from the state are going to hold, but we have developed significant contingency plans in the event of further cuts. Now, I wish the STA money could be used to cover everything, but it can't. It's transit only, but a lot of what we do is transit, so that does help.
And I do want to add in kind of to your question and also to Commissioner Crosswhite's earlier question. We are anticipating, if nothing changes, and in this state with the state budget, I never want to assume that nothing's going to change, as you all well know. But we are expecting a lot more SB 125 money that will pass through our budgets and go to local agencies. Sorry, I don't remember what they're all for, but some of them are to purchase buses, some of them are to make improvements, some are to run operations, and I glanced over at Vanessa with Gold Coast, and it made me think of her because there's money that they're hoping that comes through that will pass through of SB 125, and so there could be if they do cut that funding, I'll just say right now we're hoping to receive about $47 million of SB 125 money and you can see we only put about $8 million in here that was directly for us that we think is pretty secure. As long as we get the green light and it's a go, we will be bringing a budget amendment back to the commission for agreements and to add that money into the budget so we can flow it through to the local agencies. But out of, again, great conservatism, we didn't put it all in there because there is a smidge of doubt. I tend to be very conservative and supported by the staff. So we did withhold some of our a large portion of the SB 125 that will actually flow to other agencies until we get more information. So we are hoping that in July we'll be bringing you back some good news, but we didn't want to jump the gun.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And, you know, it doesn't take a genius to realize that things are changing in our economy.
Yeah.
People are not feeling so confident right now to go out and purchase things as inflation and prices are rising for everything. So, again, I hated to go to that dark place of saying where are our next steps if this doesn't come through. But, you know, if the pandemic showed us anything, you got to expect the unexpected. Now, I know certain funds don't have reserves for whatever reason. But does VCTC have any type of reserve policy on those funding sources that do have reserves? And what does that policy look like?
So some of them are formalized and some of them are informal. The 50,000 reserve for our general fund, which again, we don't receive general fund revenue. So the only way that really grows is when we earn some interest during the good times. So it's not a large. That was a policy that was in place before my time, so it's been here for a while. Nothing in writing. It's just been, historically, we put about 50,000 aside. And we also tend not to use all of our LTF right away so that we can move things around we need to. I'm looking here. I'll go back. Sorry. I'll go forward this time. Oops. So you can kind of look why I babble. With the LTF, the commission did take a formal action. I'd have to look at the LTF agenda item to see the when, but after a large downturn, they took a formal action to always keep about 10% of what's going out to the local agencies as a reserve. The reason we have that reserve for the local transportation fund is because unfortunately in the past, when the economy has turned and turned quickly, we had to stop payments to the local agencies, and then we had to revise downward their funding as well as our own funding. And so when the economy started coming back, we took that advantage and that opportunity, and with the commission's support, made that larger 10% reserve so that hopefully that would be enough to smooth the landing if the economy started turning south, so that we didn't have to pull back money from anybody. It's hard enough for ourselves, but for the local agencies as well. They've got their budgets planned for the year. They're running transit. It's easier for them to plan forward instead of having to scramble. With a state transit assistant, there is no reserve. That is certainly something that you could advise the executive director to look at if the commission would like. We know we have, Martin and I have actually talked about it from time to time. We've unofficially kept a little bit higher reserve balance just for the things that I mentioned. The SAFE does have a reserve of 1.5 that was originally established before I started for the call boxes. Should we have to replace all the call boxes? Over time, we've taken a few out because there's a lot of cell phone usage. However, again, I don't want to jump the gun, but there's some items that I mentioned that it could be used for, and I know that Amanda and I have talked about technology is changing fast. And so there will become a time when the call boxes we have could be technologically obsolete, or we're required to upgrade just due to the wire, 3G, 4G, 5G, maybe it'll be 6H or something, I don't know. And, but, we like to keep some of that money there for, again, if we're forced to turn quickly, we prefer to plan ahead, use our money appropriately, but we always want to be prepared if we can. The state of good repair money, that money we don't keep a reserve for, and the reason is that money is project specific approved by the state. And so the only reserve would be, actually there just really wouldn't be a reserve because the money is set aside for projects, whether for us or for pass-through. And so it's just over time as people pull that money down. So it's specific, it stays for the approved projects. There is interest that's earned that can go towards those projects, or if those projects are completed, VCTC can align that interest. And finally, the Santa Paula branch line, we've kept that fund where it's pretty much we're only pulling the funds and utilizing those funds for our expenses we have. It does have lease revenue, but we're using that to pay the vendor and pay the funds. We're not using other funds to build it up. And then what's not on here is the Valley Express and the VCTC Intercity. There is no fund balance for those two funds. We run them as a straight in and out. So there really is, if there's a fund balance, it's usually an accrual case and not, it's public meeting, so I don't want to say it's real money, but usually it's an accounting accrual type thing where it's not spendable money. So that's kind of probably more than you wanted, but a history.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for that information. And I'll just wrap up my comments of saying that I'm very appreciative to VCTC. And when I sat as the alternate for Metrolink and the audit and finance, I can see that one's regional, one's more county-based, but both finance departments did everything possible to be forward-thinking, be conservative, ensure that they're not spending more money than what we can anticipate to actually receive. So I appreciate that as not only a member of the commission, but as a member of a resident of Ventura County, knowing that our money is being spent and protected as much as possible. So thank you to you and your team. And that will end my comments. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Chavez. Any other questions? Sorry, Commissioner Francina.
Let me see if I can say this. My comment is going to be really dark.
That's okay. That's what we're here for.
It's a philosophical comment, but it's important because in all of this, we have to realize that the economic model that we are functioning under is draining the earth's resources.
Mm-hmm.
That's a well-known fact. We're in climate emergency. And I heard you say that the money for traffic, it's like we're in a dilemma because the funding, oh, sorry, could you hear me okay? The funding for traffic mitigation comes from the sales tax, from increased spending and increased driving. I heard you say that.
Well, so
it's a dilemma.
It is a dilemma. So yes, the state transit assistance funding is a sales tax based on diesel fuel, whereas local transportation is based on all sales tax, and in California that's goods. So it is a bit of a dilemma. We're going to get out of my area of expertise real quick. So if you want more detail, I'm going to
I'm just putting it out as food for thought.
Well, I'm happy to just weigh
we
on.
are looking at alternatives. The state is, but
So for future meetings, and we did have a presentation this last January from Caltrans on the road usage fee. I don't want to say road. So because a lot of the money for highways comes from the gas tax. There's a federal gas tax too. So that is, and with more electric cars on the road now, which aren't really paying any gas tax. Obviously, they're paying a fee when they register the vehicle, but it doesn't equate to the amount that they would pay in gas. So that's being studied right now. There's several different study groups. There was a presentation at the SCAG Regional Council meeting that I sat with Vice Chair Judge on. I'm thinking of bringing one of those speakers from AAA, who's actually a colleague of mine on the Mobility 21 board, to speak to us. It's we need a plan to keep that funding going.
What's going to
Right. But we also need a plan that's going to work and make sense, because I think there's been a lot of concern raised by people about, well, we could simply just use your phones or use electronic tracking to see how far you drive and then bill you accordingly. And I don't know if that would be wildly popular right now, but there are, like I said, a lot of different plans being formulated, and we're looking forward to sharing that information with you over the next year.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll stop with my philosophical comments. I mean, we are living in it's a dilemma because people are encouraged to keep buying cars. That's fueling the economy. At the same time, we want them to get out of their cars, and we want to make public transportation as convenient as the private car. I mean, it's a big challenge. And then with this generation of students, kids, I mean, we have to always be looking at the future. What is the end goal of this work that we're doing? That's all. Thank you.
Again, have you been following my thoughts again? Sorry.
Thank you. I love being here. It's just great. All the minds working together. It's great.
Thank you. Any final questions or comments? If not, I will close the public hearing and we can return it to the board for action. Motion to approve the 3 staff recommendations by Commissioner Chavez, second by Commissioner Judge. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Broggie? Commissioner Chavez?
Aye.
Commissioner Crosswhite?
Yes.
Commissioner Engler?
Yes.
Commissioner Francina?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Vice Chair Judge? Chair Levere?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. George.
Thank you, Sally. Chair Levere, if I could request that we slightly change the order of the agenda and move up item 13, the broadband. That's an action item. We have kind of a fragile quorum. So, and I know this is important for Ventura County to get approved today. So, with your concurrence.
Yeah, that's great. So why don't we take up item 13, which is the branch line utility license agreement.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Fagan.
Good morning, Chair Levere, members of the commission, and the public. For the record, my name is Amanda Fagan, and I serve as the Director of Planning and Sustainability here at the Ventura County Transportation Commission. Item 13 before you seeks approval of a utility license agreement with the County of Ventura to install and maintain broadband fiber optic cable along the Santa Paula branch line right-of-way as part of the county's efforts to improve middle mile connectivity throughout the county. Just by way of a quick background, because I know you're all so tired of hearing about the branch line, but the Santa Paula branch line consists of 99 parcels that were acquired by VCTC in 1995, along with a host of other existing leases and licenses to the railroad right-of-way, including lots of telecommunications infrastructure, as well as for access, utilities, cultivation, and other uses. The current total lease count is around 625, the bulk of which predate VCTC ownership and do not pay an ongoing regular license fee. There are 76 access leases and 25 for cultivation. For fiscal year 2024-2025, in the budget the commission just approved, VCTC projects approximately $420,000 in total annual lease and license revenues. The railroad lease and operations agreement with Sierra Northern Railway retains to VCTC the rights and responsibilities related to leases and licenses of the Santa Paula branch line right-of-way, including utilities and telecommunications. The purpose of the proposed utility license agreement and the county's broadband infrastructure efforts include economic development, reducing the cost of internet access, facilitating interconnection of government facilities at a lower cost, communications redundancy and resiliency, and improving internet access to underserved and disadvantaged communities, known as closing the digital divide. The county plans to build redundant middle mile fiber systems that connect to low-cost internet providers. The term middle mile refers to connections to data centers for internet access, such as those in Los Angeles and San Francisco. You can think of this as the state's highway system, such as State Routes 126 or the 118, which carry higher volumes of traffic and have more capacity than the local roadways and city streets that carry vehicles into their driveways. The county has received broadband planning grants to actually plan for this project and is working to secure a federal grant award to install the fiber optic cable, which would fund the proposed Santa Paula branch line segment. Deploying fiber optic cable and broadband infrastructure to the Santa Clara River Valley through or along the Santa Paula branch line has several benefits to the project, particularly the use of a mostly unobstructed right-of-way, which allows for use of plowing techniques to install the fiber, which comes at a substantial cost savings compared to installation, for example, through public roadways. The branch line also offers a relatively smaller number of stakeholders and presents an opportunity for a partnership between VCTC and the County of Ventura. Deployment of broadband along the Santa Paula branch line also has a number of benefits to VCTC and to the branch line operations, both those current operations and those of the future. Access to broadband and wireless internet can support rail operations, users and managers of the future bicycle and pedestrian trail, enhanced communications, and even traffic safety, such as by allowing for improved connected crossing signals. An excerpt from the compensation section of the agreement before you provides a window into the potential future use of the dark fiber strands that are allocated to VCTC. The agreement allows for VCTC and railroad operators' own use and for their customers' and riders' use, including but not limited to operation and maintenance of the railroad, of related or supporting publicly owned or operated infrastructure such as signals, crossings, streetlights, and CCTV, and also for public use, public Wi-Fi use for users of the trains, the trails, and future bike paths. Further, improved broadband infrastructure allows the Santa Clara River Valley communities to achieve mobility goals through use of telework, telehealth, education, economic development, and a host of other benefits. The right-of-way agreement, the utility license agreement, was initially based on our standard utility license, but through careful negotiations between VCTC, supported by our general counsel's office, and the County of Ventura, who even brought in outside counsel to negotiate this agreement, we have specialized that sort of standard template to meet both the needs of VCTC, to protect VCTC as an agency, as well as to meet the needs of the county. The license allows the county and their partners to install, operate, and maintain fiber infrastructure within the VCTC right-of-way. It allows VCTC to recover some of the costs associated with reviewing the plans, permitting, and other reasonable costs of our part in this process. The license carries a 50-year term, which is generally speaking aligned with the life of the assets. It includes indemnification, insurance, and termination provisions, and it requires coordination with our railroad operator, and also requires approval of plans by VCTC prior to accessing the right-of-way for construction. The license provides in-kind compensation to VCTC for access to the right-of-way in the form of 12 strands of quote-unquote dark fiber, and this is provided to VCTC at no charge for non-commercial purposes as defined in the agreement. VCTC will, at some point in the future, need to provide the end equipment to quote-unquote light and operate the fiber strands. But this has a number of significant benefits to VCTC that I've already addressed in my earlier comments. So our staff recommendation is to approve the utility license agreement with the County of Ventura and to authorize the executive director to execute that utility license agreement. I did include the acceptance of any final edits to the agreement in my staff recommendation, thinking we'd maybe still be going back and forth with the county, but thankfully we've been able to reach an agreement with the county and their negotiators. The county does have on their agenda for consideration to approve the County Board of Supervisors to approve their end of the agreement, I believe on June 18th. All of this does need to be done before the end of the month in order to secure the grant funds for construction and further deployment of this project. So this is a timely request or time-sensitive request for your consideration and approval. I'm happy to answer any questions, and also Terry, the county CIO, is here as well to answer any questions, or Terry, if you'd like to make any remarks, happy to turn the floor over to you as well. You want to say anything? Thank you.
Morning, Chair Levere, Commissioners, Director Erickson, Terry Theobald, County Ventura Chief Information Officer. I just have a couple of remarks. Most importantly, I want to thank the Commission for taking the time and the energy to review this agreement for this overall project. I want to recognize Director Erickson for his support on this project. We've been talking about this since he arrived, and my highest level of gratitude goes to Amanda. She and I started working on this well over a year ago. It was just she and I when it started, and now we've got 5 or 6 lawyers in the middle of us working through this. I couldn't have done a better presentation myself, and if you don't mind, I'm going to steal yours and give it on the 18th. But the one other thing I want to mention related to the time-sensitive nature of this thing is we're presenting this agreement like, if this agreement is passed and we pass this agreement on the 18th, we're good. There's 3 important components to this project to happen. This is the first. We need VCTC to be partnering with us for a lot of good reasons, but one of the most important ones is that right-of-way lowers the cost substantially on this project. Laying the fiber via plowing is half the cost of a normal dig. The second piece we need the grant. The grant is not a given at this point. It is something that we have submitted for. We have a lot of positive feedback from the state that we should be able to get it, but it has not been awarded yet. We're expecting it to be awarded in June. It could be July, but we need that award to go forward. And the last piece is we are one of the few municipal entities in the state where the state of California, specifically the California Department of Technology, has agreed to partner with us on this. So they are also contributing funds to this project. So between the state of California, the VCTC, the County of Ventura, and then we have right-of-way licenses in works with cities along the 126 route. And my final comment is this is phase 1 of the county's efforts. So the phase 1 has always been to come from Santa Clarita down the 126 to the city of Ventura. We also have a route that starts along the 118 that will eventually can connect to Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, the city of Camarillo, and our final route is to serve the Ojai Valley. So we'll be going through the city of Ventura, up the 33 into Ojai, and coming down the 150. So there's 3 phases. This is the first of those. And those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Theobald. Mr. Mattis, do I need to recuse myself from this?
You do not.
Okay, great. Okay. Then any questions on this item? Commissioner Chavez?
Just one. I didn't hear Oxnard or Port Hueneme mentioned in these phases.
My apologies. Oxnard is connected in phase 1.
Okay, I'm cool with that then. Thank you.
No, I know this project's a big part of the county's overall broadband work, so it's exciting to see that we're making this progress and keeping our fingers crossed on obtaining the grant. I don't see any other questions, so why don't we take action?
Motion to approve. Second.
White and Engler.
Commissioner Rogie, Commissioner Chavez,
Aye.
Commissioner Crosswhite,
Yes.
Commissioner Engler,
Yeah.
Commissioner Francina,
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner White,
Yes.
Vice Chair Judge, Chair Levere.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you both. we can move to item 12, the legislative update. For that, we have Ms. Peshka.
Thank you, Chair Lavier. Good morning, Commissioners. If it pleases the Commission, I'm going to be really brief on this item. My legislative update focuses on the state budget situation, which I think we've already covered a lot of, so we'll go over this briefly, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you might have at the end. I'm Darren Peshka. I'm the Program Manager of Government and Community Relations here at VCTC. I do have a brief update on the state budget situation and potential impacts on transportation programs. The two most significant developments in the past few weeks are the governor's revision to his budget proposal, which he released on May 10th, and the joint budget plan that was released by the leaders of the State Assembly and Senate last week. The legislature is on a very tight deadline. They have until June 15th to pass a balanced budget, so that's just a little over a week. The governors may revise, oh, sorry, I forgot I was supposed to do this. The governors may revise estimates a deficit of $27.6 billion, and that takes into account the reductions that were done through early action by the legislature in April. The May revise estimates that over the next 2 fiscal years, California faces a deficit of about $55 billion. For our purposes, I'll mention 3 areas of significant interest. First, the state revise maintains the $4 billion that's provided to transit operators through this year's budget. That's what we've been referring to as the SB 125 funding. It's a formula funding provided through the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, or TIRCIP. The revise would shift $555 million of that from the general fund to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. It also delays the appropriation of some of the money from 2 years to 3 years. Second, the revise maintains the zero emission transit capital funding, which is also part of SB 125, by delaying appropriation of $680 million. And lastly, the revise proposes an additional $400 million reduction to the active transportation program. And that is in addition to the $200 million cut that was proposed in the January budget. So that's a $600 million total reduction that's proposed. Cycle 7 funding, which is Cycle 7 is the cycle that's coming up, would be used to backfill Cycle 6 projects. So it's possible that Cycle 7 would be left with no funding because that funding would go to Cycle 6. Last week, the leaders of the state Senate and Assembly released their joint budget plan. Like the May revise, it maintains that formula TIRCIP funds. Again, those are the SB 125 funds, but it also adjusts the appropriation timeline. And their plan also maintains that zero emission transit capital funding, but also adjusts the appropriation timeline. The joint budget plan rejects all of the cuts that are proposed to the active transportation program. Instead, that funding would be shifted from the general fund to the state highway account. And lastly, the joint budget plan would restore $250 million to the Regional Early Action Planning Program. That's the REAP 2.0, which was mentioned earlier in the meeting. VCTC was awarded $3.7 million through the REAP project, or through the REAP program for 4 projects, but that program was suspended earlier this year after the governor's January budget proposal called for a $300 million cut to the program. VCTC has been engaged in the budget process mainly through our Sacramento advocate. We have sent letters to members of our state delegation and to legislative leaders requesting that the active transportation and the REAP funding be maintained. In addition, we are members of the California Transit Association, which has been actively advocating to maintain the SB 125 funding for transit operators. So as has been mentioned before, the budget deadline is June 15th, so hopefully we will know a little bit more about our own situation within the next week or so. That concludes my presentation and report, and I'm happy to take any remaining questions that there might be about the budget.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Peshka. Any questions? I think we've spent a lot of time talking about the dire budget situation up in Sacramento. Okay, well, thank you very much. Item 12, our outreach program update.
Yes, and this is also me, and hopefully you will find this to be a cheerier report than some of the things that we've already talked about. Again, just for the record, I'm Darren Peshka. I'm the Program Manager of Government and Community Relations. Outreach is the other part of my job, and it's something I really enjoy talking about, so I'm happy to be here with you today to give this presentation. At VCTC, we believe that community outreach is vital to our mission to keep Ventura County moving. We know that if people aren't aware of the programs and the services that we provide, they can't take advantage of them. So as we begin rolling out any new programs, we spend time thinking about how to get that information out to the public so people can take advantage of these programs. We utilize the services of a consulting firm to help perform our community outreach. The community outreach contract provides services for several VCTC transit programs, including VCTC intercity bus service, regional transportation planning, regional transit technology, Metrolink, Pacific Surfliner, rideshare, and general community outreach. And although each program manager has their own projects and priorities, we try to align our efforts to support overall agency goals. We also provide outreach support and materials to the county's other transit operators for our countywide programs. In this presentation, I'll share examples of some of the major outreach work that we've done over the past fiscal year, including our Spanish language campaign, schedule updates, partnerships for major events, our free fares program, and the State Route 150 emergency shuttle. I'll also talk a little about ongoing outreach that we do and discuss some of the plans and campaigns for the coming fiscal year. So Buenas con VCTC is our Spanish language outreach program. We launched this in 2022, and it is our very first Spanish language campaign. It's designed to connect with people not only through language, but also through culture. The campaign has been really well received in the community, and so we're always looking for new ways to keep it fresh and relevant. One new strategy that we are working on is working with a local social media influencer on a series of videos to show people how they can use VCTC intercity buses to get to community events and destinations. This influencer he runs a food-focused Instagram account called What's Good Foodies. He's based locally, and in the video I'm about to show you, he takes the intercity bus to cruise night in Santa Paula. So I'm a little worried about the volume, so I apologize in advance if it's really loud.
Y me metí a la aplicación para poder añadir dinero a mi tarjeta, que es la tarjeta de lotería que tienen ahí con el VCTC. Y vámonos, los asientos están bien cómodos y aquí vamos en nuestro viaje y ya llegamos aquí a Santa Paula. Gracias, chofer. Y mira, Santa Paula Cruise Night, el primer viernes de cada mes, es un evento gratis para la comunidad. Tienen carros clásicos, tienen lowriders, tienen un poquito de todo para que la familia se entretenga en este día, que es un evento completamente gratis para la comunidad, el primer viernes de cada mes. También hay música, el bailongo y el ambiente y también la comida, porque ya saben que a mí me encanta la comida. La Comisión de Transporte del Condado de Ventura los invita a que los acompañen en los camiones azules que los lleva por todo Woodland Hills, Santa Bárbara y Ventura County, guys. Llámenles al 1-800-438-1112 o goventura.org/buenas para más información y hacer tu cita para tu viaje. ¿Ok? That's what's good, foodies. Bye!
So we've had a lot of fun with these. This is the second video that he did for us. The first one, he went to the Oaks Mall in Thousand Oaks, and we're working on now where he goes to the Ventura Marketplace at the Ventura College on the weekends. Let's see here, where am I? Oh, so one of the goals that's incorporated into VCTC's long-term strategic plan is to promote transit ridership recovery. We're working toward these goals through a back to basics plan where the idea is to simplify the process of using public transit, which can feel overwhelming to people who have never used it or people who don't use it very often. This year, we redesigned all of our route brochures, our regional map, and our schedule to make them more simple and hopefully easier for people to use. The new materials, this is the inside of the brochure. This is our regional map. And the map has letters assigned to the stops that VCTC Intercity serves to help riders more easily identify where they are and where they need to go. So you'll see the letters on the map, and then when you look at the schedule, the letters are also there on each of the stops. We've also published a new ride guide that looks like this, that provides hopefully all the information you need to use intercity service routes. It includes information about routes, VC Bus Pass, all of our fares, taking bikes on transit, accessibility, and more. And all of these materials have the information available in English and in Spanish. Over the past year, we have been more proactive about helping educate people about ways to travel to large community events using public transit, by biking or walking, really any way to get there other than driving. When the X Games selected Ventura as the site of last year's games, VCTC was involved in transportation planning almost from the beginning, working with X Games staff, with local organizers, and with our regional transit operators. We promoted the public transit options through our website, through social media, through posters at transit stops, and car cards aboard intercity buses. We also made sure to promote information that was provided by our regional partners, and those included Pacific Surfliner, Metrolink, and Gold Coast Transit District. We followed up on that this year with the Strawberry Festival. We played a similar role in helping educate people about ways that they could get to the festival, which was also held at the Ventura County Fairgrounds. We shared information about the free festival shuttles that people could use, about the Metrolink and Pacific Surfliner trains that serve the fairgrounds, plus intercity and Gold Coast Transit District bus service, and biking and walking options. Outreach for the Free Fares program is an example of how we work with our other operators to share information about countywide programs. All of the county's operators participate in the Free Fares program, so VCTC takes the lead to prepare flyers and social media graphics and other materials. Those materials are then packaged into a digital toolkit and shared out with all of the operators. Doing it this way ensures that the branding and the messaging for the program stay consistent, which hopefully makes it easier for people in the community to use and to recognize these programs. Our free fare programs have been very successful, particularly the Youth Ride Free and the College Ride programs. But this year we added 6 additional free fare days that are available to anyone. The next of those days, actually I should say the last of those days, is coming up in June. It's June 17th, and that's Dump the Pump Day. And so people can ride any public transit bus in Ventura County for free on that day. And as always, in addition to these days, all the operators offer free fares to veterans and active duty service members on Veterans Day. In February, VCTC launched a program that allows riders to reload their VC Bus Pass cards at retailers across the county, including stores like 7-Eleven, CVS Pharmacy, Walgreens, and Family Dollar. The goal is to make it easier for people to be able to put money on their VC Bus Pass cards. We promoted this program through car cards that were placed above on all of our buses, through social media, through an email blast newsletter, through social media, and through an article on the VCTC Newsroom website. The paid messages on social media reached nearly 81,000 people. And as you can see, the campaign led 600 new users to the VC Bus Pass landing page to learn more about the bus pass. So we kind of look at that as an indication that our message reached out, that we did reach people through our messaging and that people are paying attention. Most of our outreach is planned for weeks and sometimes even months in advance, but sometimes a situation arises where just getting the information out to the public is more important than having specific branding or messaging. When the landslide closed State Route 150 between Santa Paula and Ojai, VCTC began operating an emergency shuttle, so we needed to act quickly to let people know about that shuttle and about the times and the stops. So just 2 days before the service began, we shared information on social media, and that information about the shuttle spread really quickly. We also leaned really heavily on everyone who was involved in that, the Route 150 situation. They shared information through their own networks, and so we always appreciate that support in helping people, and when people help us get the message out about a new program or a service. We have a webpage that's dedicated to the State Route 150 shuttle. It includes a map of the route as well as all the stops. We have maps and signs posted at all of the shuttle stops, and we will continue to update any changes to that shuttle information as long as the shuttle is operational. In addition to the major campaigns that we work on every year, we have a number of ongoing programs that are also part of our outreach efforts. Those include sharing information about programs offered by our local and regional partners. We have the Boys and Girls Club art contest that we do every year, and we participate in several community events. We just wrapped up Bike Month, which is something that we promote every year. Bike Month is in May, and through the month of May, we encourage people to swap a vehicle trip for a bike trip. They can make a pledge to do so, and when they make a pledge, they're entered into a contest to win a gift card. And this year, we received over 350 pledges, which is one of our highest numbers, so we're really excited to see that. We're about to wrap up the fiscal year, so we've already started planning for projects in the coming year ahead. Some of those projects include a greater focus on the Guaranteed Ride Home program, which provides people with an incentive to carpool or to use some other form of rideshare to get to work. Of course, we have the X Games, as Commissioner White mentioned, at the end of the month, which we're also involved in again. And we're also planning to do more pop-up style events throughout the county that aren't necessarily related to some of the bigger community events. We're trying to connect better with people in person to let them know about the programs and the services that we offer. And finally, kind of an extension of that Back to Basics campaign that I mentioned earlier, we're doing one that we refer to as How to Ride. It will use a series of videos and other tools to really show people how to use public transit. And so in the video I'm about to show you, Sandra, who is one of our consultants, shows people how to read a bus schedule.
Check this out. Do you need to learn how to read a VCTC bus schedule or want help planning a trip? Okay, so here is a schedule. The rows show you each of the stops and the cross streets, and the columns show you each of the routes and when each bus stops at each of the locations. And just so you know, make sure you scroll so you can check out more of the routes and the times that are available. A new tool that they have added to the schedules are lettering. So we have A for Ventura Transit Center, B for Ventura College, C for Buena High School, and so on. So those stops and the letters, they match what's on this map, so you can figure out like where your starting point is and where you need to go. Let's plan my trip. So let's say I need to be at the Oaks Mall at 11:07 and I'm starting off at the Ventura Transit Center. So let's scroll up, and this lets me know that the bus leaves at 9:55 a.m. Follow those steps to plan your trip and check out more of these schedules online. There are printed versions available. You can find them online, on the bus, or at your local transit center. VCTC can take you all over Ventura County to Santa Barbara or Woodland Hills. I'll see you out there.
And that concludes my presentation, so I'm happy to take any questions the commission might have.
Great, thank you, Ms. Peshka. Any questions on the outreach? Yeah, Commissioner Chavez?
Not questions, just comments. I like it. I think it's awesome. I think Richard is a good person to partner up with for that those videos. I first started seeing more of those type of like, hey, take this route to go here with Gold Coast with their marketing. And then Metrolink started to do more of their traveling on their trains. And then I started thinking, I'm like, well, what can VCTC do when our bus stops are so spaced out and we travel so far? Well, there you go. We kind of follow the same lines of Metrolink, you know, specific destinations that make people think about it. I have seen a lot of his videos come up, and every single time I get hungry because of the food that he's eating is like really good. And a lot of those places are right here in my own backyard. So kudos for you guys on that one. I like the Spanish outreach. I can't remember, but were there playing cards actually coming out with VCTC?
We haven't done actual playing cards. We have two or three VC bus pass cards that are dedicated to Buenas con VCTC. The playing cards, we have this conversation a lot. The trouble, let me go back. The Buenas con VCTC is based on a game called Loteria. It's kind of a Spanish style bingo game. We think you need about 55 cards for a full Loteria game. And so we do not have 55 cards. We have about 16, I think we're up to now. So we have not done specific playing cards. They're just used on social media right now.
Is one of those cards Mr. Erickson on his bike?
No, but that's an excellent idea. I can write that down.
We're trying to attract people to transit.
There you go. And then I like the promotion for the X Games. Me and my brothers, we've got into this thing called One Wheel. And if you haven't used a one wheel board, it's both exciting and scary at the same time. I have fallen a few times, but I get back up. We actually went through the boardwalk over there by Ventura and the fairgrounds, and that's actually a really nice path. Tons of people walking through there, so I'm excited to see the fairgrounds for the X Games, because me and my brothers, we can just do one wheel from our homes and then straight over to the fairgrounds, which dumps the car idea. But I'm very happy with what we're seeing as going back to the basics, because oftentimes that's how you really interest people back in the system again. And the videos about how to ride a bus or how to read a map is so important. Speaking from my experience of driving buses and having to constantly help people read a schedule or know how to even read the head sign on the bus itself, it seems like, well, that should be common sense, but for a lot, that could be really confusing, especially if you're in a new community or area of your county or region. So kudos to you guys. Kudos to our contractors that assists us with that, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Olivier, I just wanted to make a quick comment. Thank Darren Peshka for her work on this, as well as many other community and government relations focuses. One of the highlights, I think, of this year's promotions was our annual community impact report, which you've all seen, and we've been distributing throughout the county. I've received very positive feedback from people that it's a very simple encapsulation of VCTC projects, what we do, how we reach people. I want to recognize Commissioner White for helping distribute these also, and the meetings he's on. If any of you need more of them or would like an update, we plan to do that. And I also just want to recognize Sandra Gonzalez and Karen Camore of Celtis. They're here at the meeting with us, so thank you both for the good work we're doing. So thanks very much.
Yeah, I serving on Gold Coast as well. I've been so impressed with both Gold Coast and VCTC's outreach efforts. I think you're really trying to get into the community to spread the word about the services offered, the ease of access, the affordability. You're doing a great job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Crosswhite?
If you ever did decide you wanted to try to put together a whole set, reaching out to a high school class might be an interesting thing. They actually did a project like that at our local high school, where they took all of the cards and they tried to reimagine them in what does that look like in modern terms. And it was one of the neatest exhibits I have seen.
That's a
so
great
that might be
idea.
another, like, if like you get to a point, you're like, all right, you still need, another 25 cards or whatever. They might have ideas on, well, so what about transit might relate to the cards, and it could be an
That's a
interesting.
great idea. Thank you. Thank you for that. Good idea.
Right. Commissioner Brogy?
I just was wondering, I've not heard any mention of this at any of our discussions on any topics, and maybe this is the appropriate time to raise this, but while you're doing the outreach, do you get inquiries from the public, or do you provide information about safety concerns, or This comes to my mind because, we see a lot of things on the news about other communities and other cities and larger cities where there's issues on transportation. But is there information provided about policy on and what VCTC does to provide security for people that are riding?
We do have, and I'll let Martin speak to if he would like to intervene, but we do have a policy about ridership and sort of the rules that people have to follow. And we have some information on our website. Our transit team can help me out if I get lost here, sort of about the process. If someone is involved in a situation that maybe makes someone feel unsafe, sort of how that plays out. I personally haven't gotten any questions about safety, but perhaps Martin knows more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm happy to add to that. One of the first things I did when I started at VCTC in 2016 as transit director was we put together a code of conduct policy, had that reviewed by legal, and that basically allows the driver to, if somebody is really not following one of those policy issues, they can temporarily be suspended from bus riding privileges. We have had to do that a few times. I don't think, fortunately, we're experiencing some of the severe challenges they are in Los Angeles right now, but we have had incidents, and I know Gold Coast Transit has also. So we partner with Gold Coast Transit, the largest transit operator, and all the transit operators to work together to keep the riding public as safe as possible, and that involves close relationships with each police or sheriff jurisdiction where buses travel. We also, on the flip side of that, are continuing to promote bicycle safety with our ride guide. And on that line, Commissioner White and I attended County Public Works Day in the bicycle safety tent again, encouraging hundreds of elementary school kids to wear helmets, which I think with the increase in e-bikes and the speed of these bikes, that is literally a difference between someone's life and death sometimes in a crash. So that's an area we continue to work on too, but it's an ongoing process. I know Claire and Matt, the transit team, are working closely on it. And we work closely on it with Metrolink and LoSan for incidents on rail also.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Peshka. Takes us to our last formal item on the discussion calendar today, and that is our monthly Santa Paula branch line update. Ms. Fagan.
Thank you, Chair Levere and members of the Commission. Again, for the record, my name is Amanda Fagan, and I serve as the Director of Planning and Sustainability here at VCTC. I've provided a detailed written monthly report, the staff report, but I'll just make two quick updates. The staff report references a surface transportation block grant application to the Southern California Association of Governments that VCTC had applied for to fund the Santa Paula Branch Line Trail Master Plan update and Environmental Impact Report and EIS. And yesterday, again, not to steal Vice Chair Judge's thunder, but that project was part of a suite of other projects that was approved by SCAG, by the Regional Council and the Transportation Committee. So I'm pleased to report that the funding to update the Trail Master Plan has been approved, and that project will move forward. Also, with regard to the storm damage and response, just yesterday, we had an exploratory call with FEMA and Cal OES to discuss the February 2024 additional damage to the area west of the Sespe Creek Railroad Bridge abutment. So we have also scheduled the kind of next step in the FEMA process, the recovery scoping meeting with FEMA and Cal OES in regards to that, the disaster, declared disaster DR 4769. That meeting will be held at VCTC on June 18th. So we are continuing to work with FEMA and Cal OES, both on the January 2023 storm recovery as well as the February 2024 recovery efforts, and making good progress there as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions on the Santa Paula branch line update? Okay, thank you, Ms. Fagan.
Thank you.
Mr. Mattis, are there any general counsel reports today?
There are no reports today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Then let's move on to the agency reports, starting with SCAG, Vice Chair Judge.
Okay. Bad budgeting stuff. Here's some good news. SCAG, through the CRP, CMAC, and the STBG project awards, Ventura County was awarded full funding for all of their projects. So that's great news. I'm very happy to report that. I'd like to say I did it, but it was a collaborative effort, and VCTC got what they wanted, and the whole county is doing very well with SCAG. So happy to report that.
Thank you. Commissioner Engler, do you have a Metrolink update? I know Commissioner Tremblay is absent today.
Yeah, Commissioner Tremblay was unable to make it. I went down downtown for the meeting. The reports out of that Metrolink is that we are slowly regaining our ridership that we had before the COVID-19. Slowly is the operative word there. But the main thing that we're looking at going forward is the 2028 LA Olympics, which is indicated to be a car-free Olympics, and how Metrolink is going to be part of the solution for that, and more importantly, how it's going to pay for that. So one of the items on the table right now is a transportation surcharge on each ticket to help pay for it. That's something that's being proposed that hasn't come true yet. So we'll see how that goes going forward.
All right, thank you.
And Chair Levere, would you mind if I added on to the Metrolink update? It's not directly related to Metrolink, but it's somewhat related. I just wanted to share that there will be an event occurring in September 24th through the 27th, the California Government and Disability Summit. And one of our key partners, Danny Anderson with the County of Ventura, is leading that. And we are working with her as a sponsor, along with Gold Coast Transit, I believe Metrolink, and the other transit agencies. And this is exciting because it's really the first of its kind event occurring in California. And Ms. Anderson has been a really great partner to us in helping improve our accessibility services, both on public transit and in general. And I don't know if she would like to make any comments, or if that would be, we could add that.
Great voice.
So this is the first of its kind here in Ventura County. We're having the first one. The hope is we'll have it here for a couple years, and then it'll become a traveling conference to really speak to the statewide-ness of our goals with this event. I appreciate all the support from our transportation agencies, VCTC, Gold Coast, and many others. I will probably present on this again next month to give you more information and try to get all of you to attend and also get the word out more. But today I was hoping to just bring up that we're selecting like 3/4 of our breakout session speakers today. That'll leave some targeted outreach. So if there's any breakout proposals that you all could help solicit on the subject of transportation accessibility, I think that's a really important topic for us to cover at this event, and we haven't received any. So I'm a little concerned about that because I'm so into transportation and accessibility, and I think it's important for the rest of the state and the attendees to learn more as well. So if I could get you to help me with that, that would be great. And then I'll get more information out to all of you electronically, the link to our beautiful website and registration information as a follow-up. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Okay, LoSAN, Commissioner White, do you have any update on that?
Well, I want to thank you, Chair. I want to thank Gold Coast for allowing us to meet there last month and using the facility there. We had a good presentation from staff, but nothing really to report. I don't know if our executive director who is there has anything to add to that.
Nothing specific to add, just as was mentioned earlier, LoSAN was a critical part of helping the Strawberry Festival work well and will be with the X Games coming up later this month. They continue to see, I think, fairly strong ridership. I mean, last time I took the the Amtrak train, it was quite full. And again, they're also working closely with Metrolink to make the code share and other kind of partnerships more seamless.
Okay, thank you. And we have nothing on Coastal Rail or the Association of Council of Governments. Any van pool update, Commissioner White?
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay, well, that takes us to the end of our agenda. So we are meeting again. I guess it's a week later in July, given the holiday, Friday, July 12th, right here at the Camarillo City Library. So I will see everybody in July. Hope everyone has a wonderful 4th of July. We're adjourned.
Hey, that was order.